Chuck Close. He's a pervert, sexually harassy dickwad, but also significant artist. So, yeah, you know, what you gonna do? Don't hang out with him. Probably don't buy his shit. Call him a dickwad when you can, but looking at his work is important because it does inform a lot of other work, and also there are interesting ideas going on in it. So Chuck Close is working with, in a number of these, working with Polaroid. He's also a painter. You may know him more as a painter, printmaker, drawer kind of person, incredibly skilled. But these are interesting. They're super close up in a number of them. And they're, I think this is a self-portrait, but there's sort of this fracturing, right? The sort of dividing up of parts of the body or the face, right? This sort of interesting, this sort of cruciform, meaning cross-shaped. Division, same thing here, right? The way, I think it's sort of interesting the way that we sort of, you know, immediately can recognize the faceness of it, even though it's broken up into these pieces. With a Polaroid, right? Obviously there is this difference in time between each of these images being made. There is sort of like the focus is very, very shallow. It's a very large image or very large camera. And so like, you know, what thing is in focus is more about like what's important in that panel, right? Rather than trying to be consistent throughout all of them. There's another one, sort of like, it's a different vibe. So having the two portraits of the same person, it's Jasper Johns, famous painter, and two different sort of like color versus black and white. So I don't know. Chuck Close is in here because he's significant. I don't know that he is super relevant for what we're doing, other than the way that like that shifting focus, the focus is determined by the picture rather than the overall, right? So it's about what's needed in that frame rather than trying to be consistent across all the images. Dawood Bey, right, who I feel like you've probably heard of a couple of times by now. Hello, Kat. Fantastic photographer. Worth doing a quick Google. One of the things that I found really interesting is he talks about like formative moments in his own photographic sort of education, formation, self-identity, whatever. He talks about this show at the Met in the 60s that, oh my God, what was it called? Called Harlem on My Mind. And it was a show that was like, you know, big like survey at the Met, and all these photographs of Harlem, no black photographers, right? Like none, right? Which is like simultaneously mind-blowing, and you're sort of like, yeah, I can see that. So that was this like big, there was this big protest, you know, like also there was like a big catalog essay that had all this like super bigoted shit in it where you're just like, but Dawood Bey is someone who is making work that is very much about like black people in America, right? I mean, you know, he makes a lot of work about a lot of things, but that is a undercurrent to his work, and it's really good. I mean, he's someone who really makes work about people. You know, he's making work about sort of the people that he's photographing. You feel his sort of connection with them, and it feels much less like what the idea of that Metropolitan Museum of Art show sort of came across as, which is like somebody outside looking at an appearance of a person. I feel like Dawood Bey is someone who is with someone making a picture about who they are and their life rather than just like outside looking at what they happen to look like. So he's also done a bunch of work with Polaroid, which this early stuff is from. I believe this is my little slideshow machine. This is from this sort of residency thing that he did where he was actually doing work at a high school with the students that were there. I'm not totally sure, but it's all like big 20 by 24 Polaroid. So the level of detail is incredible. The depth of field is very shallow. You can again sort of like this moment across time by seeing multiple aspects of something. You sort of understand different elements of it, right? You understand that there is a complexity to what is happening in front of the camera. You also sort of understand like the sort of this shifting, changing body language of the person being photographed. Right here again, right, we have these like sort of like moment of overlap or doubling in the middle. Right. I mean, again, it's so interesting, like just that moment of like the shift of the head, right? So this tilt, um, and then there's this photograph over here that like it's mostly just a big black photograph, right? Um, but it's there because it makes part of the overall series of images, right? This like this shift in the facial expression between the two, like so good, right? Because like it's one of the things, right? You take a photograph, and one of the things the photograph says is like it sort of stretches time out, right? You see a single moment, and that moment goes on forever, right? Because you're just looking at it, nothing's changing. And so one of the things that multi-panel imagery does is that it gives us multiple moments, and we start to understand that these photographs are taken out of a time, right? That there is a change that is happening continuously in the world as these photographs are being made. This is from the Birmingham project. I'm going to script the name of it. 152 people. I think I probably showed you this when we talked about his work or somebody showed you this when we talked about his work last semester. Church bombings, civil rights era. So these are current photographs of a girl who was the age of the girls that were killed, and so their age then, and then another person who is the age that they would be had they not died. And part of this is a reminder to people like you and me that this was not that long ago, right? This is not something where it's like, oh, we have like daguerreotypes of these. Like, no, like this was like within recent memory, like certainly within living memory. This could be like, your grandparents' age. Anyway, Dawood Bey, I sent a link to an interview with him last week. Really interesting guy, good work, super nice. If you ever get a chance to meet him, go up, say hi to him. If he's working, then leave him alone. But he's nice.